Hey, welcome to Revisiting the Mania of WrestleMania Rewatch Podcast. I'm Carlos,
And I'm Maria.
and today we are going to be revisiting WrestleMania 23. We'll be going into what matches we enjoyed, and Maria will be giving her thoughts on matches that she is watching for the first time and is either going to like them or hate them, or maybe she'll just tell you that she is a fan of all of the people that are participating today.
Yeah, well, I can't wait to talk about this WrestleMania 23. It features wrestlers from Raw, SmackDown, and ECW brand divisions. So I think it's going to be a pretty good WrestleMania. But today we have a special guest.
Yes, we do. A long time viewer, and he was very active with us in the comments in our first few
Also,
episodes.
longtime wrestling fan.
Yes, Anthony, welcome to the show. And you're already getting shout outs here from
You are.
our Stevie B.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for joining us here on our live stream, Anthony and Steve.
I appreciate it.
Now, Anthony, give us a little bit of a background. How long have you been watching wrestling for?
Well, like I said, maybe in the mid 70s. Started out when wrestling used to come on channel 44 and 26 on Sunday mornings. Here, moved to Memphis. Jerry Lawler was king in Memphis. So if you didn't watch wrestling, they used to do a studio show on Saturday mornings.
Yeah.
I think that show was harder to get into than it was to get on Bozo in Chicago.
I heard stories about the Bozo show.
Yeah.
It was hard to get onto it.
And every Monday he would have a house show at the Mid-South Coliseum. And if you waited around to like maybe 10 minutes before it started, they let people in for free. So we do that. And, the days of Georgia Championship Wrestling, when that started, and just a long time. Even when WWF was on, used to come on Saturday nights for like 2 hours.
Wow.
And way back then.
So. Okay. Who were your favorite wrestlers, when you were watching back the day and today?
Well, back then was Dusty Rhodes and Ric Flair, the old Ric Flair with the
the blonde flowy, what was that actress named? Heather
Locklear?
Not Locklear, it was another lady, but I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Ric Flair, the Road Warriors always be my favorite. Not the Legion of Doom, the Road Warriors.
The Road Warriors are one of my favorite tag teams too. Yeah.
And just now Randy Orton, I just like his style, that viciousness he has.
Okay.
Yes, and he's a legacy too, right? So his father was in the game.
Yeah, Cowboy Bob Orton Jr., yeah. And his grandfather, I think.
Yeah.
Tony, who do you think has more flair? Do you think Randy does, or do you think his father has more wrestling flair? I'm curious.
Randy, Cowboy Bob Orton they were brutes, they were brutes. Randy's got that whole, he's WWE. They were like, the old, like I said, Channel 26, Channel 44 wrestling,
Mm-hmm.
I hear you. Some of my favorite wrestlers are those old school wrestlers. And you were telling us we get to see Jerry the King inducted into the Wrestling Hall of Fame.
And this one, into the WWE Hall of Fame. There's a separate Wrestling Hall of Fame, but this is just one for the WWE.
So, that's good. That's good.
So we got some comments here. Stevie B is a fan of the Warrior.
The Ultimate Warrior.
He says he's also went to school with Randy.
What?
He might have. Yeah, Steve is from Missouri like that.
Wow.
And from our Facebook Live, our friend Raymond says that the Legion of Doom was garbage and it was a watered down version of the Road Warriors.
I like this guy already.
Awesome.
Raymond
now,
with the hot take.
Before we get going into it, we have a couple more questions for you. Now, since we're primarily a WrestleMania rewatch podcast, we do like side quests and do other things. But what was your first? Was the first WrestleMania the first one you saw, or was it?
Yeah, the first one.
Did you watch that on closed circuit, or how did you watch that?
You know what? I think I had a friend that he might have had a bootleg cable box, and he would tape everything. And I might have started when he brought it to work.
Okay.
That's awesome.
Now, what did you remember from the match or from the event? Because I seem to have not remembered the first hour of it when we did our first episode. I talked about it with our friend Raymond, because I always remember that starting with the Junkyard Dog match.
Mhm.
And
Those were the old wrestlers, and it was
Mhm.
like it wasn't like compared to now. There was not all that flash, and
Mhm.
it was more like you had your staples.
Right.
Okay.
Now with WrestleMania, it's like the big thing where everybody comes out and points to the thing, and that's how
Mhm.
you get your matches and stuff.
Mhm.
You had more jobber matches in the
Mhm.
original one. Now everything's a main event. From every match could be a main event on another
Right.
show.
Ah,
A lot of story, not enough wrestling.
Yeah.
So it's
yeah.
like,
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right. Well, if we're ready,
ready to get into it?
yeah, let's go
Let's
ahead
go.
and start. You have some tidbits for us?
Yeah, so this event, just setting the tone, took place April 1st of 2007 in Detroit, Michigan at Ford Field, which we had an opportunity to go to Ford Field just a couple of months ago. Unfortunately, we did see Chicago lose to Detroit, so that was pretty painful.
Yes, it was.
But it was kind of cool seeing John Cena drive up exactly where we were walking. And Anthony, you told us an awesome story about John Cena and that Ford Mustang that he was driving.
Now, it wasn't that Mustang, but
Oh.
John Cena, Ford, they built 500 of these Mustang Cobra GTs because they wanted to get in. They wanted to enter the car into a street racing division.
Oh.
But in order to have that car entered, you had to mass produce so many of them. And I think the number's like 500. And they made 500 of the cars, and they wouldn't just give them to anybody. You had to go through an application process and everything. And one of the stipulations, if they gave you the car, they let you buy the car for $250,000.
Wow.
Was you couldn't resell it for 2 years. And they say John Cena was just too big for the car. The seat was fixed, but the wheels, the steering wheel and the pedals moved.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So the seat was fixed, and John Cena, just being as big as he is,
He
couldn't
was.
fit in a $250,000 car.
Yeah.
So he sold the car before the 2 years was up, and Ford, they had a big thing about it. Ford sued him about it.
Wow.
Wow.
So this marks the second WrestleMania in Detroit.
Right.
And so following WrestleMania 3 at the Pontiac Silverdome in Pontiac, Michigan, WrestleMania 23 was notable for being the first to include the ECW brand, established as WWE's third brand in May of 2006.
Yeah.
So we had some new faces.
Yeah, well, we had to accommodate for the bloated roster we're starting to get now, because Vince is the only wrestling that's on TV.
Yeah, he was the only game around.
And then
Wow.
eventually TNA Impact Wrestling is starting to gain traction, especially now since they're signing at this time I believe they have Kevin Nash, they have Sting, and they have Kurt Angle, and then they started having this stable called the Main Event Mafia. But we'll go ahead and get into it as far as WrestleMania is concerned. And if anyone wants us to revisit anything about that time in TNA, please feel free to drop a comment here, or after our show has gone live, feel free to reach out to us. And
So the tagline for this mania was all grown up. What do you think that was about?
I think it's the whole thing that Vince has an obsession with age, because 23 is the standard year where someone is supposed to be all grown up, that you can even rent a car
At 23.
at 23. So So it's all grown up.
That's interesting. I think
Yeah.
at 18, what is it? You can join the army. So
Yeah.
I'm like, what
Vince has, as we find out later, Vince has little
Yeah, Vince has some quirks.
yes, he
yeah.
does.
So
I'm like, Tony, that's one way to say it, right?
Yeah, Vince.
so
I
the
mean,
first
Vince was never a person you looked at and said, "Yeah, he's normal," but you didn't think he was that.
That
real.
you're like, there's something a little off about him, but we didn't realize that all that was going on.
So the first match we have starting off this WrestleMania event is the Money in the Bank match. We have talked about for the past two WrestleManias that the Money in the Bank should be the match to start off the show, and we finally get it. This match goes for 19 minutes and 11 seconds. We have the Hardys, Jeff and Matt. We have Fit Finley making his return to a Money in the Bank match. We have Randy Orton. Not Kane. We have Edge also making his return to a Money in the Bank match. And we have King Booker. He finally wins the King of the Ring, and he has this whole gimmick where he's King Booker
And Queen Charmel.
and Queen Charmel, and then he holds his whole little pinky up like this every time he makes a proclamation. And making his WrestleMania debut is Mr. Kennedy, and also technically making his WrestleMania debut, even though he was part of the entourage of WrestleMania 22 and John Cena's entrance, is CM Punk.
Yeah, with his long hair, which kind of threw me off. I was like, what?
Yeah, you're used to seeing him now with his short hair.
Yeah, with the short hair.
Yeah.
So, Tony, with all of these wrestlers for match one, do you have favorites?
Well, the Hardy Boys, of course, especially in a ladders match. And Edge, those are those are high. I just didn't see anybody else in a ladder match.
Right. Well, I mean, we did see, I think, Randy in the last one.
I think he came in towards the end of this match. So
yeah, there's a lot of breaks in here for considering that we have 2, 4, 6, 8 wrestlers in this match up all. But some of the highlights were I couldn't find pictures of it, but there's a spot where Edge just goes like on a whole spearing spree. He just spears like 4 or 5 people in a row. We also get this fun spot with Randy giving an RKO to CM Punk there.
Yeah.
And then we get this Jeff Hardy, who I guess feels like he has nothing to live for because this is one of his many death-defying stunts that he goes through. He decides to go and give a leg drop to Edge, and Edge actually, I believe he actually gets hurt because he ends up getting stretchered out here and doesn't return.
Wow.
And then we have towards the end, Mr. Kennedy giving a little bit of I forget what this move's called, but it's kind of like one of those Death Valley drivers, but he gives it to the little man, Hornswoggle, which is Fit Finley's little leprechaun. And after that, Mr. Kennedy wins.
So, Tony, what do you think about Kennedy winning?
You know what? He just never got. I never liked Kennedy.
No.
I just never liked his gimmick or anything about Kennedy. You know,
I did not understand that whole gimmick either.
but
it popped with
never
people.
Caught on to me.
I think for this one, if I had to choose who I was rooting for, then it probably would have been I was rooting for Edge.
Who's still wrestling today, right?
Yeah, he's still wrestling today in AEW. And then he got hurt, so I was very disappointed. But now looking at this match and thinking about who I would have probably wanted to win, I probably would have wanted it to be King Booker.
Okay. And I am a fan of Booker T. Also a fan of Queen Charmel. So I'm just curious, would you recommend that people watch this match, Tony?
Yeah, that was a good. It was actually, like I said, it was a good match. I think it was too many people they could have gotten away with, like maybe Edge, the Hardys, maybe CM Punk, but Kennedy and Finley, and I just don't. Those aren't high flyers. Booker T, maybe.
Yeah, he does a good spot with the bookend.
Yes.
He gives the bookend to, I believe it's Randy.
Yeah, I'm a fan
off
of
the ladder. That was a good spot. No, it was Matt Hardy. That's what he gave it to. It wasn't Randy.
Yeah,
and then but I thought this was good, despite the, like Tony pointed out, the whole I guess bloatedness to this match.
So many
I think
people.
they used the ladder a lot in this match too.
Yeah.
I mean, that ladder came into play a lot.
It did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was definitely a fan of this match. Everybody trying to get that contract briefcase. You're like, who's gonna win it? I was surprised that Kennedy won it, and I thought it should have gone to, like, if not, we didn't really see Orton until the end. Maybe Hardy. And I thought Edge was on fire for a little bit, like you said, spearing his way through. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah,
we get some RKOs from Orton, which were pretty awesome.
It was a fun spot. We got the one where CM Punk is doing the traditional using the ladder as like a battering ram and just swinging around and hitting people.
Yeah.
So this was a pretty good way to start off the WrestleMania card. We had been saying that they should have done this for the past 2 years, and I wasn't disappointed. I would definitely recommend that people go back and rewatch this if they haven't. If they're a new fan, like Maria is a new fan, and you're starting off your WrestleMania journey, and if you haven't watched WrestleMania 21 or 22's Money in the Bank, please go ahead and start off here and watch the show, and then you'll see this is a reason why Vince decided to actually pull this particular match out of WrestleMania and give it its own pay-per-view.
Oh, wow.
So, and then we have some comments here from our Facebook Live. Our pet says Ken Kennedy is a good guy, and too bad Randy buried him. And he corrected me by saying that the fireman's carry slam is what the actual move was called, and he called it the Green Bay Plunge.
Wow.
So, what about you, Anthony? You make a recommendation for someone to revisit or watch this match?
This match, like I said, I wouldn't recommend this match just because of too many people.
Okay.
I like the Money in the Bank match, especially if it's a ladders match. I'd rather those like be a tag team match or a fatal 4-way, something like that.
Okay. Yeah. So
it's with 8 people, it's just too hard to
keep track of everybody.
You know, you might miss a good move. Did you see when he hit him? No, I was looking at him and him.
You're at the mercy of the producer.
It's like, who am I supposed to be paying attention to? There's so many people here.
Right.
I agree with you. I did have fun with this match. And now that I hear you talking about this, I would say that this is actually a pass for me.
Oh,
so
okay.
It's not a recommended match. I had a good time seeing, like, you know, the RKOs, those hard hits. I also like to see Jeff Hardy flying off the top of a 15-foot ladder. Those spots are always incredible because you're like, how did he just survive that fall? And how did he, like, survive that hit? But with that, I will say for WrestleMania, okay, it's a pass for me.
Okay, so I'm alone on an island here. And with that, we'll move on to the second match. Kane versus the Great Khali. This is the Great Khali's first WrestleMania. Obviously, here he's making his debut. And this match goes for 5 minutes and 32 seconds. Maria?
Yes.
You are a fan of Kane.
I am.
Shockingly.
The Undertaker's brother.
Yes. And this is your first introduction to the Great Khali.
Yeah.
Just to give you a reminder, this is them face to face.
Wow, that guy's I thought Kane was tall, but this guy's huge. So
yeah. What do you think? Who were you rooting for? Were you on Team Kane or Team Khali?
You know, after watching this match, I really wasn't rooting for either one. This minute clocks in at 5 minutes and 30 seconds and was actually a pass for me.
Okay, so you did not like anything about this match.
Yeah, it was short, and Tony, you tell me if you had some notable moments in it.
I'm a Kane fan and Undertaker fan too. I like that whole gimmick.
Mhm.
I didn't like Khali pinning him just by standing on his chest. I thought Kane was like at a higher level to get beat like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, he had to do the job because Vince had been investing money and trying to tap into that whole India in like that whole Indian region.
On the
Yeah.
So
market.
yeah, so he started getting talent from there, so he can tap into another market here. So that's and then I believe this is like the beginning of Khali's push because he's supposed to be going up against John Cena in one or two pay-per-view.
Well, I'm curious. So
From
you're a
now.
fan of Kane and the Undertaker. What are some of your favorite Kane matches?
Kane matches. I like when they introduced him.
Mhm.
I didn't like when he had to take off his mask.
Yes.
When him and the Hurricane were partners, I liked that for
Okay.
a while. That was pretty good. I just like Kane. He's got that. He's just a big guy, and he moves and he's strong, and
Yeah.
Okay.
when he was in, I think it was Mid-South Wrestling, he was Isaac Yankum. Jerry Lawler brought him out as his dentist. Yeah, he was Isaac Yankum, BDS.
Wow.
And he had all that. He had more hair and stuff, but Kane is a good look for him. And he's the mayor of a city right now.
Yeah, somewhere in Kentucky.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's like
I think it's in Tennessee. He's
Is it
running
Tennessee?
against. Yeah,
Okay.
they were talking about him the other day. There's this guy, another podcast I watched, and he's talking about how Kane's running for governor or something, maybe
Oh,
state senate.
okay.
And he's like, yeah, don't let him mess it up. So,
wow.
but
Oh, that's like when I didn't know that the Undertaker was Big Red in
And
Texas.
yeah, and World Class
Yeah.
Championship Wrestling.
he was one of the skyscrapers too. With he was with Dan Spivey when Sid Vicious got hurt. They had
Wow.
a good run against the Road Warriors.
I definitely like that's on my bucket list of things to watch. Is I want to watch the Undertaker when he was Big Red,
Mhm.
wrestling in Texas. So he had that big hair, and I'm just like, wow, that seems pretty cool.
Yeah, he's
Mhm.
got a thing where he tells a story about his first match against, I want to say, Bruiser Brody, and he was young. It was his first match, and he started calling the match, and Bruiser Brody just took it out on him. Just
Like, you're not gonna get it on me, Greenhorn. You find someone else to boss around in the ring.
yeah. So
Yeah, so with this one, I think we're all in agreement that we're all recommending for no one to watch this match.
nah.
If you, for some reason, are wanting to watch this match, please don't.
Yeah.
Like, this is our last plea. Do not watch this match.
Especially if you're a Kane fan.
So,
That's true.
with this, we'll move on to another wrestler making his WrestleMania debut.
I'm surprised you don't want to talk about that backstage segment with the fabulous Moola.
Oh, you could go ahead and talk
and
about
Mae
it.
Young. And Tony, I don't know if you remember watching this when you were watching it live, but they do have a segment where they have, I think
They have this tag team
Eugene-
called Crime Time.
Yeah,
They're
and
back there.
Mae Young, the fabulous Moola. I don't want to say it because they're dressed as strippers back there. But it was pretty cool just to see them. I feel like Fabulous Moola and Mae Young are always kind of silly in these WrestleManias.
Yeah, towards the end of their career, or
towards the end of their career.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Not so much Moola when she was younger, but we also get to see Slick, Ricky Steamboat, Jimmy Hart, Erwin R. Shyster, Dusty Rhodes, Sergeant Slaughter, Howard Finkel, Gene Okerlund, Pat Patterson, and Gerald Briscoe. So I thought that was pretty cool to see all of those
Mhm.
characters. I like the throwback during a WrestleMania.
Yeah, we
So.
get a whole bunch of these still until like later on, and I think they just start cutting it off after they get like most of the 1980s personalities inducted into this
Yeah.
WWE Hall of Fame.
And Mae Young and Moola, they took a lot of bumps at the end of their career too. They still got thrown around a lot.
Yeah, for a bunch of 80-year-old women,
Yeah,
they were taking
thrown around a lot.
they were getting power bombed through tables
Yeah.
by the Dudleys. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Comment here that I was negligent in pointing out. Yes, rest in peace, Shad, who was part of the tag team of Prime Time. He unfortunately passed away while he was saving his son. And he got caught up. Yeah, he got caught up in a riptide and never made it back, unfortunately. Wow. So, with this now, unless you have something else to add,
no,
we can move on to the debut of Montavious. I could never say that. Porter versus the United States champion at this time, Chris Benoit. This match goes for 9 minutes and 18 seconds. Maria, you are a fan of Chris Benoit?
I am. Okay. You know, we know the history, but as far as I'm a fan of both. So I am definitely a fan of Montavious, MVP. I like that classic wrestling. I think he wrestled in college. So I had a good time with this match, and this is actually a recommended match for me. I also like MVP's outfit.
Yeah.
Everything from his wrestling gear to his boots were pretty cool.
It was very reminiscent of Kurt Angle, like if Kurt Angle went ahead and got himself like a zip up like suit like he did. But yeah, it was a very good look for him. So you were rooting for Chris Benoit, or is it MVP that stole?
MVP. Okay. This is one of my first introductions to him. I like his outfit. Again, he reminds me of like when whoever was watching the American Gladiator show.
That's who his suit looks like.
Yeah.
American Gladiators.
I really like watching that show when it was out. You know, it's just always a good time. So he clocks in at 6'2". He's pretty tall. Comes from Atlanta, Georgia. And his signature move is a Southern Slam. And his finisher is a Georgia Guillotine. So I am definitely a fan of him, and this is an exciting match for me. But Tony, what do you think about it?
I'm a Chris Benoit fan too. I like Benoit since he was in New Japan Wrestling. And he had some great matches with Jushin Thunder Liger, and they had some real good matches. So I've always liked Chris Benoit. And like Maria, you know, we know how it ended, but I'm still a fan.
Yeah, and as for me, I think if I'm recalling to when I was watching this in 2007, I did not really care for this match.
Oh wow!
Because I wasn't a fan of MVP. Like I don't know what it is. He's just nothing about him connects with me.
Wow! In this ring, he's not just a wrestler; he's a force of nature.
I understand, and that's probably. He may be a force of nature, but you know, you get those things where you see a guy and like automatically you're like you make that connection, like I like this guy, and I couldn't, and I think at this point in time I was also like I there was a Chris Benoit fan, but something about him, it was just like a disconnect was happening, and I wasn't really rooting for him as much. So we have those matches that we like to call a bathroom break, or I want to hurry up, but it wasn't a bathroom break for me. I was interested in it, but I just wasn't invested in it. And that's probably why our Facebook Live viewer Raymond says that this match didn't play well live. And yeah, I agree. This match, you know, as much as I do not like at this point in time these people in the match, they're both technical wrestlers. They both have a good technical background. And for this match to be on a WrestleMania, you expect them to have like a longer time.
Yeah.
And it seems like it's very truncated. And like Raymond pointed out, that the match just something didn't gel.
It's under 10 minutes.
So it's one of these things where it's like they needed more time. And we get this feud actually continuing on later on, and I believe that they actually do have a couple of matches from when I was following up on it that actually are recommended for some people to watch. But since we're only doing WrestleManias at this point in time, this is just like, I think the way that I came into wrestling, if people are wondering, is I primarily only got to watch WrestleManias. So when I thought about going to WrestleMania, and then we actually got to go to WrestleMania, I thought about bringing Maria up to speed with that. Only watching WrestleMania, since it worked for me and it made me a fan, would be the best way to get her to be also a fan as well. And it seems to be working.
Yeah, I thought the audience was pretty hyped during this match. And Steve made a comment, isn't he dead? And that's true.
Yes, I believe
because
he is
this
referring
actually
to.
marks Benoit's final WrestleMania appearance, as you mentioned, which is another bittersweet memory in wrestling history. So this would have been his last one. But I would argue that this is a recommended match for me. I enjoy the classic wrestling. So if you enjoy seeing takedowns, holds, reversals, then I would say that you should watch this.
Okay, so you're recommending for someone to go out and watch this match if they're a fan of the technical aspects of this match.
Yeah, I'm a fan of MVP. I like to watch. I enjoyed watching this one, and it would be a recommended match for me.
All right, what about you, Anthony?
Just because I'm a Benoit fan, I would watch.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like I said, I like Chris Benoit. Yeah.
Okay.
I like his wrestling style. I mean, him and why am I blanking on his name? Kurt Angle. To me, that's like wrestling magic. I like to see those go head to head or toe to toe wrestling.
Yeah, the best part I did like about Benoit is that he gave a real mean German suplex. That is, look at that.
Wow.
And I haven't seen that many people give like really good German suplexes like that. Like they look like if someone's to make like a training video on how to give a German suplex, Chris Benoit would be like that template that you would use for someone to.
I don't know. I think the Steiners were the best. Steiners were the best with the suplexes, and maybe an old partner of Benoit's, Dean Malenko. He was good.
Okay.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
I was like, I like that. That's good. I was like, now I gotta look him up so I could see.
Yeah, we only got a brief introduction to the Steiners back in WrestleMania 9.
Yeah, I think
so. As far as a WrestleMania, and I think we technically did get Scott Steiner come back after the WCW purchase when he had his whole blondish hair and he was a genetic freak and he was hot. That was his gimmick. He was out there saying that he was a genetic freak and he wanted all his freaks to holler if they hear him.
What year was that?
That was
2003, 2004-ish.
Yeah,
when he came into WWE, but he had that gimmick back into like 98.
Yeah,
when it was
WCW. Yeah.
Oh. Okay, so
yeah, with this one, Benoit picks up the pin after his flying headbutt finisher that he does off the top rope. But as for me, and I guess I'm alone on the island because I'm the only one that doesn't recommend this match. Anthony recommends you watch this match if you are interested in venturing down the matches of Chris Benoit's career. And a comment from Raymond here. Going over this card with you guys reminded me of how mediocre.
Wow.
Raymond, are you referring to the whole pay-per-view as a whole or just this
the whole
particular
WrestleMania
match?
or just the match?
Yeah.
I'm curious.
And with this one, I believe there was another vignette, right?
I don't remember.
You know, there was one where Donald Trump shows up and he's talking about how Vince is not taking care of him. He hasn't eaten anything. He's talking to Miss USA, Sarah Connors, I think, or something like that was her name. And the Boogeyman shows up, and Donald Trump is not selling the fear that you're supposed to have for the Boogeyman.
For the Boogeyman, yeah.
Yes, and he tells the Boogeyman to go get him something to eat.
He was pretty boring. Like Trump, was like pretty boring during that vignette. Now that I remember it,
yeah. I don't remember him having a mini Boogeyman. because like a little mini person shows up in the boogeyman face paint.
A little person.
Yeah, and then Vince, Donald Trump looks at him and he's like, "Who are you supposed to be?" And then the little thing just runs away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's see. Arpet says, watch Benoit's matches when he was kid Pegasus.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That was his name.
Some of those old New Japan matches,
Mhm.
oh, they were great. He was yeah.
Yeah. So with this one, after that vignette, we move on to The Undertaker versus Batista for the World's Heavyweight Championship. The old NWA, WCW Big Goldie is how I refer to it as that belt.
Ric Flair's belt. That was Ric
Yeah.
Flair's belt for the longest.
This match goes for
15 minutes and 46 seconds.
yes. Maria, you are a fan of The Undertaker.
Yeah. Also a fan of Batista, but I have to say, a lot of the matches besides that Hell in the Cell with Mick Foley with The Undertaker haven't been super impressive to me, but this is a match that I like to recommend with The Undertaker. Now, I know you said you're a fan of The Undertaker, Tony. What did you think about this match?
I like Batista too, so you know, it was just like two trains hitting. Batista's big, he moves. Undertaker's big, he can move. And, you know, I knew it. I had it on the tip of my tongue. When he goes old school and he walks on the top rope.
Yeah.
Once he does that, the match is over for me. I'm like a little kid then. I'm jumping up. Oh, yeah.
Oh,
wow.
Well, disappointing comment. According to our Facebook live chat, Raymond says that it was another garbage match. That Batista was never good, and The Undertaker could not carry him at this point.
Wow.
Well, Raymond, I'm sure you will not be disappointed, but this is a match I actually enjoyed, just like Maria. Yeah. I was a big fan of this match. Watching it again. I remember my initial view of it, just like Raymond, when I watched this live. I did not really consider myself a big fan of Batista, and I was a fan of The Undertaker, but I don't remember being impressed with it when I was back in 2007. But rewatching it with Maria and going through it, I was genuinely surprised because I had not had an Undertaker match in the past 14 appearances that he's had, since he's 14-0 at this point, that I recommend. Yeah, this ends up, spoiler alert, if we haven't got, because we haven't gotten to it, Maria has brought up that The Undertaker does end up winning this match.
Yes.
He wins the World's Heavyweight Championship belt, and it extends his record to 15-0 at WrestleMania.
I agree. When Undertaker walks the line, it's always awesome because he's such a tall guy. Also, one of my favorite spots is when Undertaker goes over the top of the rope and he does his suicide dive.
Yeah.
A man that tall doing a dive like that. Also, I like when he jumps out of the ring and lands on his feet, which I'm sure is hard on the knees, but very cool. So I liked everything about this match. A fan of Batista as well.
Yeah, we got this this picture of him doing that old school. My favorite spot was this one when they take it outside and Batista actually power slams Undertaker through the announce table. I thought that was a pretty cool spot on that one. This is one of the rare matches where we get Batista may not be as tall as the Undertaker, but we've always had these matches where the Undertaker is supposed to be facing another powerhouse or another big man. And usually those big man matches don't end up hitting for some
They
reason.
always miss the mark for me. I don't know what it is. I'm hoping for more. But...
Yeah. And this one actually hit. All the power moves, they were believable, and all the pain that you see that either one are going through, it's actually believable. As much as we don't Raymond may not like Batista, this is one of those matches where I feel that actually Batista is doing a good job in actually keeping up with the Undertaker. And with this one, I feel like I could see why they end up having like other matches with this particular feud with Batista and the Undertaker, because they end up having like another match, which was a last man standing match, I believe, which is supposed to be a good one. So if we get enough interest, maybe we'll go ahead and go through with this whole watching like in another side quest that particular match, if we get enough interest and things
Well, I'm
like
kind of
that.
curious. Did you guys like the storyline for this match? There was kind of a little bit of a build-up.
What was the build-up?
So they had a feud at SmackDown
Mm-hmm.
with Batista and the Undertaker vying for the World Heavyweight Championship. We also have Undertaker at a Royal Rumble, earned him a shot at the title, and he, targeted Batista with the choke slam on Raw. So we had a little bit of a build-up before we had this WrestleMania 23, which I thought was pretty cool because I like to hear the kayfabe or the story along with it. But
Well, this one, I believe we got more of a build-up to it because the Undertaker had finally won the Royal Rumble.
Mm-hmm.
And the tradition has been, since Ric Flair had won the title at the Royal Rumble, is that whoever wins the Royal Rumble gets a shot at the main event and the World Heavyweight Championship.
Now I have to ask Tony. Tony, did you watch the last Royal Rumble? Because I hear some criticism about the last one.
I saw pieces of it, and I saw more of the women's rumble than I did of the men's rumble this year.
That's true.
Yeah.
They talked more about the women's rumble with Jade Cargill than anything.
That's true. I fell asleep towards the beginning of the men's part of the rumble.
Yeah.
And who's supposed to be going to WrestleMania now?
After finally the pressure has built up against The Rock facing Roman Reigns.
Yeah, but didn't they get together or something? There's a picture the other day.
They're finally together. I did not watch SmackDown, but it's supposed to be a very good promo that The Rock cut at the end of SmackDown for like the last 20 minutes of that show.
I don't think The Rock cuts a bad promo.
Maybe when he was first introduced there, Rocky might
even then, I feel like he was still such a big personality.
Yeah, maybe, but unfortunately, the audience did not gel with that particular, which is shocking because like the Usos were able to make that work for a little bit with having their whole traditional like dance and everything, whereas when The Rock debuted with kind of traditional type of Samoa type of garb and things like that, they were just instantly booing him.
Yeah,
so it's funny
he was a watered down Samoan. The Usos and all those, they came out like the Samoan SWAT team back in the days and everything,
Yeah.
So
we have some comments from Ram Z. We want Cody.
Yeah, Rocky sucks. Apparently he's a big LA Knight fan, so he is an LA Knight.
21-1.
Yeah.
Oh, does that mean yeah?
Yeah, I think that's how that's supposed to go. And they're
he's also a fan of Brock Lesnar.
He was hooked up in that whole Vince thing too, though.
I heard that was surprising. I was like, whoa.
The only thing that I liked about Brock Lesnar was when he was a UFC fighter, and I've told Maria this before, but he wins a belt, and they're doing like the post fight interview with him inside the octagon, and the guy's asking him, what's his plan for his like next opponent, and Brock is like, my only plan later tonight is to go home and have sex with my wife and have some beers. That was the only time I'm like, oh, wow.
You're like, wow, I love this guy.
Yeah. Brock's daughter is pretty big in Colorado, too. I think she holds a shot put record for her.
Yeah.
The school she goes to.
You're right.
Looks just like him, too.
Yeah, a little bit.
No, she looks just
like him. Yeah. I don't have the picture because I wasn't prepared for that tangent, but yeah, she looks just like him. I will show you that picture later on today.
She looks just like him.
Mm-hmm. So with this one, I believe there's one more vignette with Vince. I'm not sure if it's this one, but Stephanie comes into the locker room,
Oh,
into
with
the
her.
backstage with a baby carriage. We're supposed to believe that there's a baby in there. And then Vince is pretty much harassing this baby about what he's gonna do to Donald Trump and how he's gonna shave Donald Trump.
It was a little weird.
Yeah, it was really weird. I don't know who found these funny. Apparently, maybe Vince is the only one that might have found these amusing, or maybe Donald Trump too. But with this one, we can go ahead and move on to the next match.
So was that a sweep that we all are a fan of?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
we all approve that you should go back and watch. Thank you, and rewatch the Undertaker versus Batista match. Raymond would disagree with us all, but he will have his moment to shine when he's our guest for our next WrestleMania rewatch that we have coming up, WrestleMania 24, because he was actually there live in Orlando.
What?
And the next match we have on the card is the ECW originals of Rob Van Dam, Tommy Dreamer, Sandman, and Sabu versus the New Breed, which is Elijah Burke, Matt Striker, Marcus Corvin, maybe, I don't know, and Kevin Thorne. This match thankfully only goes for 6 minutes and 26 seconds. Maria, you are a fan of Rob Van Dam, so I would assume that you were cheering for the ECW originals.
I am. I really wasn't a fan of this match, and it's an 8-man tag team match. So I thought it was cool. I have a few fave spots, and it gets good at the end when RVD pops in. But for WrestleMania, this is a pass for me. And I think it's better suited for like a Monday Night Raw.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, I'm curious, Tony, what do you think about this 8-person tag team match?
I was just a fan of ECW, especially how they would come in through the crowd.
Mm-hmm.
Sandman was one of my favorites always. Sabu, he could take a beating. So I always liked ECW. The New Breed, I couldn't tell you their names, and you just read them off to me.
The only one I would have remembered was Matt Striker, because he ends up being like a commentator and an interviewer later on in the company. But just like Anthony, I do not remember anything of the New Breed. I do remember the ECW originals. And I am disappointed that we would have these ECW originals and not actually have anything to do with a hardcore match. There were no Singapore canes out here or kendo sticks. There were no tables. There were no barbed wires. There was no trash cans. The only trash can we get is not even in this match. It comes up later on with the Vince McMahon and the Billionaire Hair versus Hair match.
I enjoy that.
So I think we can all call this a clean sweep and a very disrespectful tribute to anything that would have been called an ECW original match.
Ooh. But if you are a fan of this 8-person tag team match, let us know.
Drop a comment. I mean, we're not always right. We're and everything is very subjective. If you want to convince us on why this is a match that my wife should actually go back and rewatch under a different scope of light, or Anthony,
that's true.
You're not gonna change my mind. I'm just gonna.
I just like they spotlighted ECW for a minute, but
this wasn't a lot of fun. Okay, so with that,
with that one, we can move on to the Billionaire Hair versus Hair match.
Do you remember watching this when it came out?
Yeah, I remember watching this when it came out, and I was not very interested in anything in this match. I was not a fan of Bobby Lashley, even though he was a United States veteran, just like myself.
Just like Tony.
Yeah, just like Tony. I thought he was with the Marine Corps.
So that makes me not a veteran?
I know.
No, I said U.S. Army veteran.
Okay. Yeah, I was a Marine. I was a Marine.
I'm like, wow.
Yeah. So, Bobby Lashley was also an Army veteran. So that's where I was actually putting that distinction in.
And Randy was a Marine.
Yeah, but he went AWOL.
Yeah, he got a big chicken dinner. Yeah.
Did he? I
Yeah.
didn't know that.
He did not
Wow.
like going through the military basic training, and he just decided to go ahead and leave. And I guess either Cowboy Bob or Vince took care of any of the fines or any of the jail time he should have gotten.
I didn't mind this match, but Tony, I'm curious. What did you think about this? Because this was
Uh,
supposed to be like the biggest part,
this
like one of the biggest parts.
this was the go to the bathroom match for me.
Ooh.
Go get a snack.
Yeah. Go get some merch if you were interested in
And
going. You had around like
Umaga and Bobby Lashley. I think this was basically towards the end of Umaga's push, and
mhm.
Bobby Lashley just never caught on with it.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what did you think? I was a big fan of a couple of spots. Shane McMahon going coast to coast, I thought was
Yeah.
impressive.
Yeah.
I
This
always
particular
like
spot
that
right
off
here.
the top rope. Yeah, I
Yeah.
always like Shane O'Mac doing that.
Yeah, my favorite spots here now that I'm like, because I am like a big fan of the Usos. I like these things that I'm actually when I'm rewatching, I'm actually picking these up here, just like the Usos have incorporated, in particular the spike that Solo Sikoa does now, and that Samoan spike. We have the splashes that Umaga does here that's been incorporated, I believe, more lately with Jay, main event Jay Uso, and particularly does that. So I like those little tidbits that I'm picking up as now, because it's a nice, I think, a nice little tribute, because Umaga was their uncle.
Yeah, something like that. They're
Yeah.
all related, but
That's pretty cool.
they're
Yeah.
all
That's
related
true, right?
somewhere down there.
No, but I believe he was an actual brother of their
I think it
father,
was
Rikishi.
Rikishi's brother,
Yeah.
wasn't it?
Yeah.
Wow.
And Raymond's correcting me on the pronunciation of Umaga, which is Umanga, which I believe was how William Regal pronounced it. Umanga.
Well, what did you guys think about Stone Cold Steve Austin making a referee appearance in this match?
He still needed money,
What?
and he still wasn't about to be wrestling. And
Yeah.
no matter as much as Vince probably wanted him to get back in the ring, he knew that Stone Cold was still an attraction, and he needed him to get in there. And how else are you going to have someone in there to kind of like tip the scales? Because knowing Vince and writing this as a storyline, he would have been finding any type of way to scrape a win against Donald Trump. But if we're really thinking this like booking wise, that would be the way it goes. But Donald Trump was not gonna agree to have
Oh
his
no, he's
his
not
head
gonna
shaved.
get his hair shaved now. You
No.
can give that up.
This
No
was
way.
the out that they were gonna give Donald Trump, so he has some way. Vince is gonna get screwed by Stone Cold, like he always gets screwed by Stone
Well, I
Cold.
mean, we do see Donald. He makes a move on McMahon, which I was surprised to see him do that. But like you said, it was kind of a dull match for me.
Mhm.
So with that, I would say this is a pass. I'm curious if Arpad is a fan of this match.
Believe Raymond is not a fan of anything in this WrestleMania card. But Raymond, if you want to go ahead and let us know in the comments if you were actually interested in anything of this billionaire hair match, feel free to comment. But as for me, yeah, was not interested, but actually more towards the end interested, as now as like I mentioned, picking up all of those like kind of nods that the Usos are doing now to Valerico, incorporating those moves
like from their relatives or their uncles or their cousins. That is pretty awesome.
And we've got the comment here. You asked for it. Umanga was cool, but this match wasn't good.
That's true.
Yeah, so I think we're all in agreement.
Yeah,
here.
Well, we have another filler match after this one.
Yeah, we have the women's match. Ashley Massaro, who won a Diva Search contest, I believe, in this particular, and that's how she gets into the business, versus Melina.
So this match
it was a lumberjack match too, wasn't it?
It was Lumberjills because
Lumberjills. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
they had a match that was untelevised, and that was a lumberjack match.
Yeah, that was the Ric Flair match teaming up with Carlito.
Yeah.
So we did not
and
see that.
Carlito's still wrestling right now too, right? He's wrestling for
He's somewhere. I saw him somewhere.
Yeah, he's wrestling for SmackDown. He came out yesterday. And yes, as Raymond points out, unfortunately, rest in peace, Ashley. Ashley has passed away. I believe it was due to a drug overdose because of like depression and everything that she was getting. Comes out that she had like rape allegations that had were not actually investigated properly, and so that kind of depression. And then as you can see in this match, she's not a very good wrestler. She's just meant to be eye candy, and I think Vince was just trying to find like diamonds in the rough when it came to women wrestling. Like Vince needed like the package of, I need you to look good but also be good in the ring, and he was just trotting out women out there just to see if that would actually happen.
Yeah.
And Ashley was one of those women that unfortunately did not happen with.
Well, I'm just curious, Tony, what do you think about this match?
Like I say, I didn't back then. I don't think they had the right female wrestlers. I think back then maybe Beth Phoenix, Lita, maybe 2 or 3 you could actually put over as wrestlers. But like Carlos said, Vince wanted arm candy. He wanted,
You're right. Yeah.
And this is disappointing because the previous WrestleMania we had Trish and Mickey James, and they had a very good match. And I had not looked ahead, and I was just going based on my memory when I had made the recommendation for people to go and watch the WrestleMania 22 match between those two divas, because I was, like Tony had mentioned, we get Beth Phoenix and everything into this particular era of women's wrestling.
Right.
And as Raymond has pointed out, Victoria was also one of these women.
Yes, she was very good.
Very good. And I think they just didn't have anyone who could produce and book these matches properly. Or if they got feedback from Vince, they just didn't have the spine to stand up to him and convince him otherwise on why some women needed to go out there and have a little bit of a longer match, because there are women on this roster, and we actually see Mickey James as part of the Lumberjills, and she had just lost that title to Melina about if it wasn't the last pay-per-view before WrestleMania, it was a couple of months back. But you figured that Mickey James should be due for a rematch. And why it ended up going to Ashley is only because Vince saw Ashley as a hot product and then just wanted to get her sometime on the biggest stage of them all. And hopefully it's not because Vince had an ulterior motive with this young lady.
So Massaro puts up a fight, but in the end, Melina proved why she's the reigning women's champion. And this match comes to an end, clocking in at, like you said, a whopping 3 minutes and 40 seconds. This match was a pass for me. I'm assuming that it's a pass for you guys too?
Unfortunately, yes.
Okay. And does that take us to the main event?
Yeah, it takes us to the main event. And who else would we call on? It's at Forge HBK, the Heartbreak Kid, the Showstopper, Mr. Main Event,
Mr. WrestleMania.
Mr. WrestleMania versus John Cena.
This match goes for 28 minutes and 20 seconds. Tony, who were you rooting for?
In this match, actually, neither one of them.
Really?
Both of them, there's times like the D-Generation X, Shawn Michaels, I like, but other than that sexy boy guy, nah. John Cena just never really caught on with me.
Thank you. Wow. Another person that is on the John Cena never caught on with me bandwagon. Is it for the same reason that I have, Anthony, where I'm not a fan of the spinner belt?
It was like that and the gimmick just never hit.
Mhm.
You know, the what was he? The king of thugonomics, and then he's this, and now he has hair, which is terrible. You know, he looks,
It's very weird to see John Cena.
yeah, he doesn't match.
So,
You know, so it's just like I never caught him at a good. He was never just that guy for me. I saw
Wow.
an old, I think it was when they were doing a documentary on wrestling, and John Cena was on there. He was like, I think his name was the Prototype or something.
yeah, that
And
was
he
his
had
name.
I had a mohawk, and
Mhm.
I was like, yeah. And then the next thing you see him in WWE, I'm like, nah,
Yeah.
that guy's not gonna work.
I think
But
that
they pushed him.
yeah, the Prototype, I believe, was a gimmick he had in when he was in the developmental in Ohio Valley Wrestling.
Wow, I gotta
Yeah.
check that out.
Yeah.
The Prototype.
And a comment here from Stevie B. Well, now he's too worried about his acting career.
I will
for
say,
John
CBB,
Cena.
have you watched the last show that he's on? Because it is pretty cool.
The Peacemaker.
Yeah, the Peacemaker. Anthony, I'm not sure if you watched it. It's a little
I'm a
violent.
big Marvel fan too. That's
Mm.
actually one that I didn't. I saw. As a matter of fact, when I was home last week, it was Come and Gone, and they were going through this where they had the shark, and they were going. I was like, yeah, I don't think
I think that was the Suicide
Squad. That was
Oh,
the
yeah,
second
the
one. I'm like,
Suicide Squad.
yeah, I don't think I'm gonna watch that one.
Mm.
The
And it's
second one
not
wasn't
many
that
Marvel
good.
movies that I miss.
Mhm.
Now I just saw John Cena in a movie with Jack. Was it Jackie Chan? It was Jackie Chan. And it's like one of those straight to DVD movies, and that was actually a good movie.
Wow.
Oh, okay. I have to see if I can find that on
Yeah, so I could watch
IMDb.
it. I'm interested.
It was actually a pretty good movie. Me and Jesse sat here and watched this.
What? Jesse.
Oh, let's go ahead and go through this. So this is the Mustang that John Cena uses to drive through glass after revving it up outside of Ford Field. He gets out and he's wearing a Marine hat. What did you think about that, Anthony? Because I know us military men, we don't approve of civilians wearing military as gear.
We don't.
And I know that John Cena was doing this as a nod because he was in the movie The Marine that the WWE produced in conjunction, I believe it was with Lionsgate. But
yeah,
so you are on board with me where we do not approve of civilians who have not served.
Nah.
Okay.
Now there's some things like, and we just got into this the other day about, I bought some decals. And everybody has one on the back of their phone, and Sandra's like, no, you can't do that. Don't worry, it's just a decal. But you know, I have decals on the back of my car, and every time somebody uses my car, they say some Marine guy ran up to me and he was you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, no stolen valor from me.
Okay. So, but you were not a fan of any of this particular.
Nah, like I say, Shawn Michaels, he had stints that I liked him, like the D-Generation X Shawn Michaels. And that was the D-Generation X that had China, not when China was gone.
And Rick Rude.
Yeah, they had a moment together, didn't they? China and Shawn Michaels, where they were together for a little bit, or
Triple
was it?
H?
Yeah.
Was it Triple H?
Yeah. That was Triple H. They say that's why she got blackballed out of the company, because Stephanie gave her a bad name and Vince just kicked her out. And then all of a sudden, Triple H and Stephanie are married.
It's a shame. That's what I was asking Carlos about too, because I'm like, weren't they together? And now it's playing out on live TV. That's terrible. So I don't agree with any of that. But I was surprised to hear that Triple H was a good friend to Shawn Michaels. So he tried to, I guess support him when he was going through a lot of the things he was going through.
All of them, Kevin Nash, Triple H, Shawn Michaels, I want to say the 1, 2, 3 kid.
Yeah. Scott Hall, Razor
Hall. They were known as the Clique. They were real tight together.
Yes, Sean Waltman. Yes, thank you for giving us Xbox 1, 2, 3 Kids real name.
And he was married to China for a while, they say. Him and China were together for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, really?
Stevie B comments that he just kept changing his name because he didn't want to retire. Yeah, but Maria, since I guess we can guess that Anthony was not interested in this match, who are you rooting for?
I was rooting for Shawn Michaels. I am a fan of John Cena. I really enjoy watching him maybe in like his latter years, not like the Thugonomics John Cena. That was kind of lost on me. Also as far as like his wrestling technique, I'm more of a fan of Shawn Michaels' wrestling technique. Like those classic matches, him with Bret Hart are some of my favorite matches. Even like Triple H and the Shawn Michaels. But what I will say is that if you want somebody, and correct me if I'm wrong in the way I say this, to put somebody over, it's Shawn Michaels. Because he's going to put in that work. He's your, he's going to put in that work to put somebody over. And that's what he did here.
And like Raymond points out in the comments, here is Mr. WrestleMania that mostly loses at WrestleMania.
Yeah.
And I think this is at the time that Shawn, he realizes that he's getting up there with the age, and he's rooted in that tradition where if you're older, your job is to put over the newer talent, the younger talent, the ones that mostly these newer fans are there to see. But I think in this instance, I was actually wanting for Shawn to actually win this match. As we're hearing throughout this whole match, the crowd is kind of a little bit divided, but it seems more against John Cena. And the way this match is actually skewing, in particular, I believe that it should have been they should have given Shawn this one more chance and one more run with that WWE belt, because I thought he did a great job in getting John Cena to be a good, like, you actually have a good match with him, because as much as Triple H tried to do that in the previous WrestleMania, it's very different styles when you have Triple H and you have
you have somebody that's like a little bit more, I
Yeah.
don't know if the right word is like fluid or is able to move really well, has all these like different wrestling techniques.
Mhm.
And then I don't know if they're considered brawlers, but they're like these huge big guys that like do these power hits and
Mhm.
stuff like that. But Shawn Michaels can definitely move.
Yeah,
so.
because even though he had to retire because of that back issue, I love the spot that he does here with that outside the ropes moonsault over here against John Cena. He actually manages to get John Cena and do a pile driver onto the ring ropes here, or the ring steps that they have on the side.
That was impressive.
Yeah.
I mean, John Cena's a pretty big guy.
And for him to actually be, because he balances them for a little bit, it's like a good maybe 5 seconds before he actually drops them into that pile driver on the steps.
Yeah.
And comment here from Raymond here. He was also annoyed that HBK didn't win, but he understands the reason why, because it was right for the card, and right for the, I guess, the losing the word, but I guess the heat that John Cena gets and the buildup that he gets for, he ends up tapping out HBK. He tapped out Triple H. He doesn't win with his standard finisher, the FU. So now we're trying to build John Cena a rapport of actually being a technical wrestler.
Yeah.
Which was a big, like,
And he was a bleeder. Sorry, I'm looking at the comments.
You're looking at the comments from Stevie B. Yes, he was a bleeder. Shawn Michaels ends up getting he ends up blading himself.
Every match he's always bleeding.
Yeah. And he's just taking a page out of Ric Flair, from what I could think here at this point.
There's a period of time, and I forget what era it is in wrestling, where McMahon doesn't want people to get bleeding.
That happens after maybe in 2 or 3 years,
where it's a little bit more PG.
Yeah, we call it the PG era, and this is after Vince is like, I no longer had to sell sex. I no longer had to sell people getting beat up and bleeding on TV to win ratings.
So this is is it still a ruthless aggression?
This is still ruthless aggression. I believe goes on
for
a few more
because
years.
Edge was still there and everybody. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So overall, I love this match.
Really?
Just because of HBK, he does the job, like we said. And I found out a little bit later that he ends up getting mad at John Cena after this match.
Why?
Because John Cena, if we look at this match, John Cena is not selling a particular body part that HBK has been working on. And normally, like if you're getting arm wrenches and someone's doing arm moves, like MVP was doing to Chris Benoit earlier in the pay-per-view card, you know, you'll see somebody grabbing onto their arm and like they won't be able to perform moves in that particular like for that particular part of their body.
Right.
HBK was working on the legs in particular. I believe it was the left leg, the left knee, and John Cena would like sometimes grab that knee or not being able to perform a move, but then other times he'd just be walking or running as normal. And with HBK being one of
So
the
you're saying that
older
he
ones,
wasn't selling
he
it.
wasn't selling that
Okay.
injury, and he was upset because you know you're not selling the injury, you're not letting the people commit to you
know,
as a baby face, because that's what he was. And you know you're supposed to be like, oh, how's he gonna beat HBK if he has his injury? How's he gonna get him up for his FU? And if he sells that particular injury that HBK's been, you're gonna know why he didn't use the FU and why he had to use the STF as his finisher. And that does affect this match, like if you're looking at it psychologically, like with that.
Well,
But
you guys are, you know, veterans of watching wrestling, and I can imagine that you're probably catching this stuff. But if it's me, that's like a new person watching, of course, I totally missed that. And then if it's me actually wrestling out there, I'd probably be like John Cena and forget which body part was injured. So I'm just curious. So you said you're a fan of this match and that you'd recommend that people watch it. Were you also a fan of this match?
No.
No? No. So the main event is not a rewatch for you, and I can understand why. So after hearing you,
what about you?
I would definitely recommend you watch this. I'm a big fan of HBK. Like you said, the crowd had mixed emotions. I really like to see Shawn Michaels wrestle. I like his ring gear. I also was a fan of the intro of him rolling out in front of the stadium, which I thought was pretty awesome.
John Cena's?
John Cena. So I thought that was pretty cool too.
Yeah.
So I would say rewatch it.
I just want to know who was driving the car, you know.
I thought it was him.
No, I want to believe because it took him so long to get out.
They were switching.
He had to climb over the seat or come from the passenger side to get out because he didn't get right out. It took him a minute to get out of the car.
Yeah, good point. I'm pointing that out. I thought at first like that particular part was filmed. And then that's why we had that hesitation because, you know, if it's all done at one take, then you know that he's actually driving. But the point that he actually had to stop and then spin the wheels a little bit more to go through the glass, that's when I thought that part was the actual, like, now live part.
Now live, yeah.
My friend Raymond points out that the best wrestling in Detroit that weekend was at the Ring of Honor show before the night before, and I believe that's the link to it. I'll go ahead and check that out after the show, Raymond. But I believe that would be it for us as far as this is concerned. We'll go ahead and recap our matches here so we can go ahead and catch people up as far as what we recommend that if people are deciding to go back and rewatch this WrestleMania 23, what matches you can go ahead and skip and which ones you should go back and rewatch. Maria, go ahead and start us off with yours.
Okay, so some of my favorite matches. I was on the fence about that first match with Mr. Kennedy and CM Punk.
The Money in the Bank one?
Yeah, I was. But after we talked about it, that's a pass for me. The Khalil, that was also a pass for me. I like match 4. Chris Benoit with MVP was a favorite of mine. So I had asked that I recommend that you watch it. Undertaker and Batista, that was another one for me. And let's see. I was on the fence about this Bobby Lashley and Donald Trump, but that was also a pass.
Mhm.
The Lumberjill was a pass, and this last final one was a recommend for me.
All right, so you recommend that if people are a newer fan to wrestling and deciding to rewatch WrestleMania or watch WrestleMania 23 for the first time, to go ahead and watch the Chris Benoit versus MVP for the United States Championship match, the Undertaker versus Batista for the World Heavyweights Championship belt, and the main event of HBK, the Heartbreak Kid versus John Cena for the WWE Spinner belt. What about you, Anthony?
Even though there were too many people, I still always watch a ladder match.
Okay.
Always watch a ladder match. Watch a Chris Benoit match. Even though Kane lost, still watch a Kane match.
Oh, okay.
Watch the Undertaker's match. And if you had never seen ECW, watch the ECW match.
Okay. And comment here before I get to mine. Stevie B asks, where can I watch? If you want to watch WrestleMania 23 and you have a subscription to Peacock, you can watch not only WrestleMania 23, but you can watch all the WrestleManias from 1 to 39 right now. If you don't, you can just go ahead, and I don't condone this in case anyone is watching from WWE or TKO Sports.
You can definitely catch
but you could definitely Google search that on YouTube, and they can show you those particular matches if you're going based on our recommendations, TVB, or I believe they do have the whole pay-per-view.
Yeah.
And as for me, I recommend that you watch the Money in the Bank ladder match just because of the high spots that go into it. We have 2, 3, 4 people that have been in a ladder match and in the Money in the Bank ladder match before that do some really good spots. We have Edge doing a spear roulette. We have CM Punk in there doing some type of whirly thing with this ladder. And then we have Jeff Hardy death-defying stunt and injuring Edge.
CM Punk did put the ladder on his neck and do like a twirl around.
Yeah.
And then the other match I recommend, which is a rarity for me, is the Undertaker versus Batista match, because this was a match I felt that finally delivered on a big man versus a big man. And the Undertaker was actually the most agile big man that we've seen.
Also, his undefeated WrestleMania streak continues. So.
Yes. Yeah. And because this is his second time winning a belt at WrestleMania. The first time was at WrestleMania 13. This is, we don't get many chances now with the Undertaker actually winning a championship, as he is getting, I believe at the end of this Mania is either 41 or 42.
Was this CM Punk's debut too for WrestleMania? Because we saw him come out in a car.
It's his in-ring debut, yes.
In-ring, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then the last match I recommend you watch, because I am a big HBK mark, and I broke down the whole psychology of, like, it just tells you how much HBK is a fan of tradition and ingrained in that, and like telling you a story, is this particular match between HBK and John Cena. It may not have gone the way that HBK wanted it to go psychologically, but it actually has you rooting for HBK, even though he's supposed to be the bad guy. And just like the previous WrestleMania had people rooting for Triple H, even though he was supposed to be the bad guy. Mm-hmm. And it kind of still gives some legitimacy to John Cena as a technical wrestler, now being able to have his second WrestleMania defense or victory come by the way of a tap out.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, this is also the year that Randy Orton gets his legendary name, Legend Killer, 2007. Okay. So for that, we didn't get enough of him in this WrestleMania.
We didn't get enough of him killing legends?
Nope.
All right, Anthony, anything you want to say or plug? I know you're may not have any social media presence.
But if you
I'm
do,
not sure, but if you do,
I just Thanks. When y'all first started, Maria's cousin, he introduced me to it. I was like, what? They do that? And I'm a big wrestling fan, a big comic book fan. I found out that was part of y'all's thing too. So just,
Yeah.
you ever need somebody to fill in, just give me a week's notice.
We appreciate you.
Off the road.
Yeah, we appreciate you making the time to come
we
on
appreciate
with us.
my cousin too. He is one of 4 cousins that I grew up with and is one of my closest cousins, along with his twin. So
yeah,
a shout out to them because I love them very much. And my aunts.
And they just hollered a shout out to you too.
Okay.
So with that, everybody, thank you for watching.
Yeah, thank you for watching. Please feel free to share this with any wrestling fans, rudos, rudas, heels, baby faces, whoever you know is a fan of wrestling. Share this particular YouTube link. We're also on Twitch. I do plan on uploading the audio here to our audio subscribers on Monday, on the 19th.
Send us a page.
Yeah, if you have any questions or comments and you're rewatching this,
fax us.
Yeah, fax us. Feel free to drop a comment here. If you want to email us or give any suggestions, you're more than welcome to email at revisitingmania@gmail.com.
Type it up on your typewriter, send us a letter.
And our next episode is going to be next Sunday. On the 24th, we'll be doing our WrestleMania 24 rewatch, and it will be with this man who just commented here about Rudos, the red-nosed reindeer. No, Raymond, you know what a Rudo is.
Is that another term for a wrestler in Espanol?
Yes, it's for a heel wrestler in Lucha Libre, but he will be joining us because he was live at WrestleMania 24, and he'll be giving us any of the inside tidbits and rumors and things like that he might have heard while he was out there in Orlando. Thank you very much for joining us, and have a great day.
Bye.